Hey, and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. I'm so excited to introduce today's special guest, Desiree. Desiree has been through way too much in one lifetime. Her story is so inspiring and heartfelt. I challenge you to find something in her story that you cannot connect with. There's so much growth and wisdom that she speaks out, even under her circumstances of being diagnosed with cancer while being pregnant. That's just a few things that we dive into today. So jump into this chat with us. Thank you so much for being here today. I am delighted to be able to hear your story.
Having me.
Well, I am going to pass it to you so you can tell our audience a little bit more about you and we'll dive into our chat.
Okay. Hi, I'm Desiree Shroyer. I am a mom of two little girls. I'm married. I've been married for this will be 11 years. So we've kind of been through a lot of ups and downs together. I'm just excited to share my story.
I am so excited to hear this. We have a mutual friend that connected us. And I just get really excited when people are like, hey, I know somebody who has an amazing story that really needs to tell it. And I love when the person like you're like, I don't know if I really have this really amazing story, but you do. Oh my goodness. So I am so excited. Just a little bit that I know about you. We have a lot in common because my husband has brain cancer, but you yourself have gone through a cancer battle with some pretty interesting dynamics and complications. So I would love if we could just go ahead and jump and dive in there if you're comfortable with it.
Let's go for it.
Okay, so first, what type of cancer? How did you find out? What did that look like, and what was going on in your life at that time?
So I have had triple negative breast cancer. I've actually had it twice. So I had it for the first time back in 2020. It was right before the pandemic started. Um, and so I didn't get to really have anybody with me like during my chemo treatments and stuff to start with, just because it's real scary and everybody's immunocompromised and stuff. Um, but we got through that. Um, and then we had some struggles with like infertility and things like that. And so we didn't know if we were going to be able to like have a family. Our oldest daughter, she's actually adopted. And so we had her, and she's truly what got me through like that first battle of cancer. um, but so we got through that bout, and then we lost two pregnancies. My oncologist was like, keep trying, keep trying. It's a good thing that you were able to get pregnant, just because everything was damaging to, my whole body. And so it was great news that we were able to even get pregnant. And then I kind of gave up on trying to get pregnant. Just, I don't know. It was really hard. So we were able to get pregnant shortly after we decided that we wanted to try again. Everything was going great. I also work in the ER as a nurse, and I had my first ultrasound to hear the heartbeat with one of the doctors I work with. So that was kind of cool. And I FaceTimed my husband, and it was just like a cool little moment to like have with, you know, a friend of mine that I've worked with for a really long time. And like my husband was able to hear the heartbeat for the first time, and it was great.
Yeah.
And then I started to notice a mass. It was in the same spot as my previous cancer. And so, of course, with my history and everything, we were concerned about it. And so I did see a breast specialist. We did a biopsy. I was 28 weeks when I was diagnosed again. So then it was like terrifying, like, do we jump in and try to save my life, or is that going to harm my baby's life? Like, we prayed and fought for this baby. Sorry.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, that's
uh,
so many big, major life decisions
uh,
all at once.
uh. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's
Oh,
life,
well,
right? It is life, and it is those moments where exactly like it sucked terribly, and you had so many barriers and complications to being able
yeah.
to just be a human. Like, yeah, take this moment, be a human.
You know, when I train new nurses, I tell them that in the ER. Uh,
Oh yeah, it's great. It's so much easier to tell other people. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, catch me
yeah,
like in a week or something, and feel free to like repeat this part and say it to me, and then I'll be like,
yeah. Anytime things would get overwhelming, I'd be like, hey, if you need a minute, go take a minute and be a human. Like, yeah, you're a nurse and you're going to be here for others, but you also have to be there for you. So I try to like take my own advice.
it's not easy. It's good advice, but not easy.
uh, so we had prayed for this baby. We fought really hard to get where we were. And I was already seeing a high risk OB doctor. Phenomenal. He made me feel so comfortable about everything and very confident that everything was going to work out. I had a whole team of healthcare professionals just trying to figure out a way to make everything work to where everybody was okay. And so we decided that we were going to wait to start chemo, which is terrifying because the type of breast cancer I have, it's just very aggressive and it was very rapidly growing. And um, come to find out, like later down the road, it was actually metaplastic carcinoma. Um, when I was diagnosed originally, they had told me that it was invasive ductal carcinoma, which is very aggressive, very hard to treat. But then to find out that it falls into like a subgroup of metaplastic carcinoma was just even more of a blessing that we were able to get to where we are now. Just because I did have to wait several weeks, we decided to induce at 34 weeks. I had to do some steroids to make sure that my daughter's lungs were going to be, developed enough to breathe on her own. Delivery was so hard. My body just wasn't ready for it. And so after 3 days of labor, we got to have our sweet baby girl. And she had to stay in the NICU. She was born on a Wednesday. She came home the following Wednesday. I was still able to breastfeed. Um, we had no evidence that it was, in my circular system or anything like that. And so I was able to still breastfeed. We did have to supplement still because I could only use the non-affected side, which was fine because she was still getting like her colostrum and all the good things that she needed. Um, so she stayed in the NICU for about a week. She came home that following Wednesday, and my first round of chemo was that very next day on Thursday. So while I was in the hospital, had delivery and everything, they offered to send me straight to surgery after my delivery to get my port. I opted to wait till the next day. So I took my day and I ate a big old cheeseburger. I went and saw my baby and, had my heart all filled up again. And then the next day I went and had my port placed. And yeah, I started chemo like the very next day after my daughter came home. And it was like, okay, she's here safe. She's great. She's good. She's strong. My turn to fight. So I jumped right in.
Wow. Wow. That's a major timeline, very quick to be able to just I say be able to, like you had no other choice, right? Like
Yeah,
you
right.
had to. You had
Yeah.
to. Wow. And what was the timeline? So you were first diagnosed in 2020, went through treatment, and then what was the time that it had come back after you were pregnant?
Man, so they tell you, so with my experience and everything, they tell you that if you can make it 3 years in remission,
Mhm.
your chances of it coming back significantly decline. And mine had, so after 5 years, it's like almost not even a thing for it to come back, but they can't guarantee that it would never come back. I got diagnosed 4 years after. So it was like so frustrating that I made it so long. It was so frustrating. But I mean, it was great that, we caught it when we did because you you can do chemo in your third trimester. And I was in my third trimester, but there's only certain ones that you're able to give. And for like the gold star standard for the triple negative breast cancer, the one that we had to start with, I couldn't take while I was pregnant. Um, oh, and in 2020, I was pregnant when we found that one. But that pregnancy was non-viable. And so we didn't have to put anything off or anything like that. It was kind of a blessing in disguise. I was very aware of my body changing and everything with the pregnancy. And so it prompted me to like catch it super early. Um, and so that, I mean, honestly, I think that pregnancy saved my life that time because I would have just ignored anything that was going on. But I was pregnant. I was like, no, I got to like look into things and make sure everything's okay. And, then I got diagnosed with the cancer. And then I think 3 days after that, I found out that the pregnancy was non-viable. And so I was like, I mean, that was a lot of really bad news. But reflecting back on it, it truly was a blessing in disguise. Because we were able to catch it early, and had that pregnancy been viable, I would have had to choose my life or the baby's life. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it was hard, but everything worked out like it was supposed to work out.
Yeah. Oh, that's so wild. I like my with my husband's brain cancer, you're sharing the timeline like, hey, you make it 3 years, that should be good. 5 years, great. And I
Yeah.
remember him telling me he had a 5% chance to live up to 5 years from his original diagnosis in 2009. I met him in January 2015.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay. And as a researcher, that's my background. Of course, I dive in and I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing. So he was already this like medical miracle in the first place.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, year four it comes back. You're like, wait a second, his came back in 2020, like over 10 years later. So I've had a few people actually say to my face, like, "Well, you knew this was coming." And I'm like, "Did I? Did I know it was going to come back?" Because honestly, according to the research, he should have died. It should have already came back, and it should have killed him. But
Yeah.
here we are in 2025, and he's still alive. So it's amazing what the body can do and what we don't know. And I love your outlook on saying, "Hey, that pregnancy that I lost really is what saved my life."
Yeah.
To be able to help me to know that there was something wrong. Like that's a that was probably a lot to still have to grieve with and actually
Yeah.
accept as you move forward and being a mom of two lovely daughters. And what was that like also? Because that's another barrier in my experience, very different. My son was 15 the second time his dad's cancer came back,
Yeah.
and that it's a different age, completely
Yeah.
different age, right? So,
Honestly, I didn't tell, my oldest is 7 now. I didn't tell her how scary it was. It was kind of just, like mommy has cancer and it's going to be really hard for a little while, but we're going to get Sissy out of mommy safely. Mommy's going to make sure that we do everything possible to get her here safely. And then mommy's going to fight as best I possibly can. Because I wanted to be here to raise my girls. So I didn't tell her all the like scary parts of it. But before I even um, had to really fight, I kind of was preparing her that like mommy's not going to feel very good. I'm not going to get to go outside and play basketball with you, like because that was our thing. Like her and I used to love to go and play basketball. I was like 6 months pregnant out there playing basketball with her. So I mean, it took a lot of we really had to like figure out a new flow of life. my husband stepped up and he did all the things with the oldest. And my mom, she actually moved in with us. She's still living with us right now. She moved in with us to help take care of the baby. And so she helped take care of me and the baby for, the whole time I was going through chemo. My husband's a school resource deputy. And so we didn't want him and my daughter bringing, germs and all that stuff
Yeah.
to me. And when I was going through chemo, it was like in the fall and the winter time. And so that's like the most terrifying time. Like that's the scariest season to be going through chemo. Everybody stayed healthy. We were real big on washing our hands and stuff. But I mean, it truly took a tribe of people.
Mhm.
All of my coworkers from the hospital stepped up. They all like donated money. The church that we belong to, they were so supportive. They brought us food. They held a fundraiser. I was out of work after my delivery and stuff, and I had just started this job that was like a full-time job because I only do like part-time stuff at the hospital. But I've worked there forever, so they were just like family. And then I don't know, we had so many people that poured into our lives and just stepped up and helped so much. We have these neighbors that, the drop of a hat can come down and like they help us so much. And we truly are just blessed with amazing, amazing people in our lives. More than what what we realize. Not that we don't have friends and things like that, but you truly don't know how much you mean to people
Mhm.
until you're going through a hard time and you have to rely on others. And I don't know, it was just amazing to see everybody pour so much love into our lives.
That I can 100%. I relate to that too with everything that's gone on with my husband. You're right. There's people from like all over.
Yeah,
And one of my favorite things to ask people who have gone through tough times
yeah.
is what was some of the smallest things that made the biggest impact? So like for me, people sending me like a $20 Starbucks gift card, I could go get my tea, not coffee, but I could get my tea and I could get my breakfast in the
Yeah,
hospital and still be close to my husband. And $20, someone Venmoing me or sending me a gift card was probably a
yeah.
small thing, but it was huge at that moment. So what are some of those things so our listeners can say, hey, if I see or hear someone going through something, maybe here's some ideas I can generate for them.
So, there is one thing that I really loved, and it probably is gonna like resonate with a lot of females, I believe. Um, I had I had this lady from our church, and she was just so sweet, always. She would be making dinner and stuff for her family, and she was planning out what she was going to make that day. And she would just send me a text and be like, "Hey, I'm making such and such for dinner." So, number one, that took the question of what do you want? What would you like? How can I help? Like those questions away. So I didn't have to think or feel like I was burdening somebody. And she simply was like, "Hey, this is what I'm making for dinner. I was going to make extra. Can I drop it off for you?" And I was like, "That sounds great." She would bring it by, drop it off, and then go have dinner with her family while I had dinner with my family. That was one of the easiest things for me. I didn't have to make any choices. I was in the middle of making choices about, is this going to kill me or is this going to save me? So that simple little, hey, this is what I'm making. What's a good time for me to drop it off? You know, if my daughter didn't like it, she just had like a peanut butter and jelly or something or ramen noodles. But, it was just one thing off my plate. We didn't have to think about it. We didn't have to worry about it. And that was just one of the simplest things. And it was what she was already making. It wasn't anything special she had to make for us. Like, I don't know. That was just one thing that I was like, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to come up with an idea of what to get for us for dinner, nothing like that. And it was so helpful.
I I say this because I'm sure you have the same mindset. Like you already kind of led into this with what you were just saying, is that people mean this, and I say this like out of love. People say, "Hey, if you need anything, let me know." Right?
Yes.
And it's so loving and it's so great. But for me, how it felt and all the big extreme moments I have to go through with my husband's condition was, okay, that's one more item on my to-do list. Let me think of something that you can do to help me. It's kind of the same thing, right?
Yes. And it's also, I don't know, like it's so sweet to just reach out. And I know that there were so many people that said that. And I know they truly meant like anything. You
Yes.
let me know. I
Yeah.
know they truly meant it. But in the moment of like, I have 500 questions going on like through my head. What is it that this person can help me with? And like some of the people that I'm really good friends with, like they don't have a lot of like money to do like certain things, just things like that. Or
Yeah.
some people don't have time. And so I'm like, okay, what is something that they could help us with that is something this specific person's situation can handle, And so it's just kind of like we carry this weight on our shoulders, and it helps to have people take a little bit of that weight off. But then trying to figure out, okay, well, this person can carry this much weight, and this person can carry this much weight. And so it does get very overwhelming and hard. And I know everybody means it from a really good place, but just making those choices. Like I said, she just was like, "This is what I'm making for my family for dinner. When can I drop it off?" And I was just like, oh, "Perfect. I don't have to think about anything. I don't have to make any choices. Like it just, even if we didn't like it, like it was fine because we had dinner, we were fed, everybody got to eat. It was so nice. It really was."
Yeah, I think one of the societal things with the let me know what I can do for you, I think it's that we find initiative intrusive. And even my parents, who I love them so deeply, and I am so blessed that I have two parents who are willing to literally drop anything, ignore their own health problems, which I'm not happy about, but this like
Yeah,
blessed that I have people in my life who are willing to like drop everything for me. But my mom is so worried that she's gonna like be intrusive or step on toes. It it's almost this like I want to help, but I don't know how to help. So
yeah,
over the years, I just keep running like initiative is not intrusive. Initiative is not intrusive. And there's been a couple times recently where I wasn't feeling well. I was sick, and they live like 45 minutes away. They drove in to drop off dinner, and they're like, you know what? We're not even going to stay because we don't want you to feel like you're hosting us. We just
yeah.
want to make sure you didn't have to worry about this. You can eat something for you, and something's already made for Andrew. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's amazing.
Yes.
But I think I think it's a societal thing where we just think like, well, we don't want to be intrusive or the I have a I've basically been a vegetarian since I was 7. So there's like dietary differences between my husband and I. So sometimes people get caught up in that. And I'm like, anything, even if my husband gets fed, I can be like your daughter. I can eat me some PB&J, right?
Yes.
But my husband would go nuts if he had to eat PB&J every day.
It's just honestly, everybody just poured so much into us, and that's just the one thing that really, really stood out was just it was so helpful, and I don't know. Like I can't even explain it. It was like the simplest thing, but it was so appreciated.
Yes. Yes, that's something I really wish more people would hear and learn. Like it's the little things that make the biggest impact when you're going through tough times.
Yes.
So I think that's we also talked a little about how your work was so supportive. I think that's a barrier that a lot of people experience is when you yourself are going through something or your loved one's going through something. For
Yes.
example, I worked for a company that didn't have an FMLA policy.
Oh my
They were
goodness.
a flexible work environment. They didn't understand why I just needed to take a week or two
Yeah.
for when my husband and I found out that he wasn't supposed to make it through the end of the month. And I'm like, hey, I just need a week or two. And they're like, well, it's a flexible work schedule. Uh,
Yeah.
What? So what were some of the things with your work environment? Maybe it was colleagues or those above you in work, or maybe work policies yourself that were maybe still barriers, and then maybe some of those that were like, this was so helpful. I wish everywhere was able to experience this.
So I was actually working. I was working PRN, which is just as needed for the hospital. Everybody always needs nurses, but so I didn't have any problems with that. Except for I didn't have like health insurance through them for like long term. I didn't have any paid time off because it was as needed. And so I had started with this home health company after I was already pregnant. And then I was like, oh, great, like, absolutely, I'll jump in both feet. Like, we're going to do this. I'll get benefits, all these things. Well, I did not qualify for short term disability. So they would offer FMLA, which in the state of Oklahoma, like, they don't have to pay you, they just have to secure your job while you're away. And so I was like, how am I going to do this? Because I could not work. Like, you can't
Yeah.
push or lift anything heavier than like a milk jug. And I was like, I'm a nurse. Like, I can't go back to work and move like 200-pound patients. So it was actually pretty hard, but everything kind of fell into place that allowed me to start working from home. There were some moves in that full-time job that I wasn't even really given the option to do this new job role, where it's like essentially auditing charts and things like that. Um, I was kind of bitter about it, actually, because I'm not a sit at the desk kind of person. Like, I can't sit all day long and do stuff like that. Like, it drives me nuts. But again, it was a blessing in disguise, because a few weeks after that is when I found out my cancer was back, and I was like, holy smokes. And they told me initially, like, this is potentially going to be a completely remote position. So when I found that out, I was like, hey, this is what's going on. Is there any way that I could, like, for sure be remote? And, they jumped through hoops. They got me a laptop, like, the very next week, I believe, to try to start, like, transitioning me to work from home. So I was able to start working from home before I even went in for my induction and stuff. And so, like, that all just worked out so well. But then, like, at the hospital, that was such a hard time. We lost a very close, he was our nursing supervisor. And so, like, everybody went through a hard time. And they still showed up, like, they showed up for me, and, like, they were struggling. So,
Yeah, that's one of those moments where we're all battling something every single day.
yeah,
And we don't know what the other person is battling that we interact with.
yeah,
But I also think a lot of us are really quick to look at other circumstances and think, oh, wow, they have it worse than me. At least majority of us, because I feel like there is some difference in how we view things, like how our brain actually interprets things. Because there is that group of people that's like, my situation is way worse than anybody else's. But I think there's a good majority of, especially in service fields, like yourself, being in the healthcare field, your husband also in a service position. That was, I'm sure, not easy as well, especially the income levels of service positions, right?
hey, there was one thing that I would always try to tell my friends, even before I started the chemo and delivery and all that stuff. Everybody would view me as, like, I have so much on my plate, and, all this stuff. And so they wouldn't want to, like, burden me, with their struggles and stuff. And I'm like, when I went through everything in 2020, I was working at the hospital full time. So that was my only job, those were our friends at the time, were all my coworkers. You have family, like, family. And so that was one thing I tried to tell people before I went through chemo this time. I wanted to advocate for my feelings. And I was like, hey, I don't care what you're going through. You're my friend. Don't rob me of the opportunity to be your friend. And so I would try to tell them, I'm like, I want to know what you're having a hard time with. And so many times they would be like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to, like, dump my problems on you. You have so many of your own. And so I was just like, let me focus on something else. Just give me something else to focus on for a little bit. Let me be a friend. Like, that's part of my identity, is I'm your friend too. And so I want to take some of that from you, and I want you to talk to me, confide in me. Because a lot of times back in 2020, when I was first going through it, people just, like, didn't really tell me about their days or anything that's going on. So it's very isolating. Um, And they would never want to bother me. And they're like, well, I know you're tired and, I'll let you go. Or I didn't want to call and bother you. And I'm like, you left me alone. So I tried really hard to advocate for my feelings this time. And I was like, hey, like, I want to know what's going on in your life. Like, don't isolate me. I want to be a part of your lives no matter what I'm going through. So that was like a big one.
You just explained that beautifully. Like I haven't even been able to put into words what you just put into words. Is that, like I am your friend too, and it is kind of
Yes.
isolating, which I think in the field that I'm in and the circle of friends that I've made, it made my situation a little different because a lot of people ask me, is like, anyone ever ask how you're doing? I'm like, surprisingly, yes. But there are times where it's like, hey, how's Andrew? What's the update with Andrew? And then, oh, how are you doing? And then I'm like, great. So now we just spent 15, 20 minutes and I'm like, uh, okay, well, what about me connecting to you?
Yeah.
So when you're saying that was isolating, like, oh man, I was feeling that hard because I literally was thinking, yeah, like I have a lovely friend, one of my best friends, and she's a fixer. She's great. If I ever need someone to put something into words for me, or if I ever need to like tell a situation, be like, okay, I need someone to tell me what to do, or like give me options on how to fix this. Wonderful. The downside was is she also was pregnant. She was having a baby and she had a family member going through cancer. And I'm like, you have a lot going on too. And she was always asking me about me and always wanting to help me. And then I'd be like, in my mind, I was having to train myself to be like, no. Like you don't have to ask me about me every day. You don't have to ask an update for Andrew every day because it changes every day. Like I want something new. And I do remember one time I coached the veterans rowing program here, and we were one of the many times we were living in the hospital. And I was taking a break from the hospital that night. And after rowing, we used to do this thing where we'd kind of meet up and hang out and eat hot dogs afterwards. It was a little program the boathouse had. But anyway, I text her and I said, hey, will you please tell everyone not to ask me questions? I just can't today. I just can't. And she said, yep, you're good. And it was one of like the best days I had was going there and just sitting there and hearing everybody else talk.
Yes.
She, like the good defensive friend she was, she told everyone, don't ask her anything. And they didn't. And it was glorious. And I love what you said. And I'm going to have to like put that on replay to make sure that I'm able to articulate it the way you just did to my friends. Cause I do. Like you said, that's part of your idea. Like you're a friend too. And I feel like sometimes I let my friends down when it's constantly what's going on with us. Now, obviously my situation is I'm not the one living with cancer. My husband is. But I also recognize with my husband's situation, all of my friends are having to grieve with the loss of who he was.
Yeah.
A lot of us are still accepting who he is because that's constantly changing. He's a neuro patient. His personality changes. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's exciting, his old personality comes out. Sometimes it's who is this? What is going on? But I'm sure that you have had maybe some experiences where like you're isolated where people were constantly asking about you or putting the focus on you. But did you feel like you had some of those relationships where people were almost avoiding you like the plague?
So, yes. I
Probably another hard question, hard topic. I'm hitting you hard today. Oh my
Oh
goodness.
no, that's okay. That's what this is for, right? It's like I'm here and smiling and
Yeah.
it's raining and storming, but that's okay because I thank God every day for waking me up and allowing me to even like have the rain today. So um yeah, I feel like there's always some people who do end up losing touch a little bit just because of some of the hardships that they're going through in their lives.
Mm.
Um and it's a lot to like I don't know, it's a lot to shoulder. And when you're going through a lot of things too, it's hard to like it's so easy for me to get lost in my own issues in my own world. And I feel like that happens with other people too. They get lost in their own world and they get very like hyper focused on their problems and stuff. And so I don't know. I think that's part of just life in general though. We just get so easily caught up in life and everybody else just kind of seems so far away. And I definitely had some friends that they had so many things going on in their lives. They're like, I can't handle more things right now, which is okay. Like not everybody can shoulder everybody's problems all the time, So, and that's okay because I truly believe that everybody comes in and out of your lives and stuff for a purpose. So,
And that's another really great point that you just made is they're going through their own battles and sometimes they just can't. Like the day where I was like, I just can't be asked one more question about my husband. They're just like, I just can't take on one more friend that is also hurting and also struggling.
yeah.
So how beautiful and the growth and the light that you speak. So I definitely want to touch on this, but before we close, is your faith, because you are a loving Christian woman. And I'd love to know, do you feel like your faith was strong before and that's what's really helped? And what did that look like? And were there changes? Did you dive deeper or what's something, because I think a lot of the times when we go through this, we
Hmm.
question, right? It's a natural emotion. Like we want to question, we want to say why, but then
It
sometimes,
it definitely carried me. So, when I was first diagnosed in 2020, that very morning, I wasn't in my Bible very much or anything like that, but that very morning, I remember I was like, man, I haven't read my Bible much. I literally picked my book up that morning, started reading it, and was diagnosed later that afternoon. So I 100% believe that God was like, hey, I'm giving you the tools that you need to get you through this. The way that we got my daughter, like I said, she truly got me through that first round of everything because I would be laying in bed and being miserable and pitiful and just I felt so bad. And she was 3 and she was like, "Mommy, can you come play with me?" And the mom in me is like, absolutely. And I made myself get out of bed. But the way she came to us was so I had less than 24 hours notice that I was getting her. It was an emergency foster placement to start. I know it was. I'm telling you, we have a wild story,
yes.
but I truly believe that God was equipping me with everything I needed before I had to fight. And so this time, I really relied heavily on it. I went down to MD Anderson. I spoke to like a breast oncologist. So that's all she does. And she saw me essentially as terminal. She told me that it had metastasized to my skin. People in my situation typically only live about a year and a half. Gave me advanced directives, told me I needed to start having the hard conversations with my husband and my family and like, all that hard stuff. She told me to not do radiation therapy, that we would do radiation if I needed it for palliative care, if I was starting to have pain or problems with everyday living. She encouraged me to try to do a clinical trial that they had. They had one available for me, but my heart just wasn't. My heart was so restless and like couldn't find peace in that. Um, and she was saying, if we don't do that, then there's this other type of chemo I really want to try. It's a new generation chemo. It's supposed to be like a smart chemo. Um, and my heart just could not accept those things. I talked to my radiology doctor, who was one of my greatest advocates this entire time. I made it to MD Anderson because he fought for me. And so I talked to him and I was like, listen, am I in denial? Like, am I just like refusing to believe that I'm going to die? And I told him my thoughts and my thinking. And of course, I talked to a few of my close friends from the hospital and was like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Like, I don't know. I'm not sold on this plan. And they were like, no, I don't think you're in denial. My radiology doctor was like, no, that makes sense. I think your assessment, is appropriate. Um, I truly believe that God would not allow peace in my heart until I asked the right questions I needed to ask.
Mhm.
Um, and one of my good friends, um, he essentially told me like, hey, it's gonna take if you do that clinical trial, it's gonna take like 3 to 4 weeks for you to even start that. Um, he's like, if something happens and it doesn't work, can you be okay with knowing that you spent that 3 to 4 weeks just waiting, not doing anything? And I was like, no, no, I don't think I think I would feel guilty because I just sat around and waited. And so there were a lot of people that influenced my decision. And I truly believe that God would not allow peace in my life and in my heart until I asked the right questions. And I came to the conclusion that I was going to do radiation anyways. Um, Even though, like, the best of the best in the world told me, you know, don't do this radiation, do this other stuff. And then I was like, man, okay. I'm going to do the radiation and I'm not going to do the other stuff. And so my oncologist here locally, she was just, when I saw her again after I completed radiation, she was crying. I think she was truly convinced that I was going to die, that I made the wrong choice. And then when she did my exam and everything, she started crying again. And she was like, how did you choose that? And the only thing I could think to say was, I've prayed more than I have in my entire life. As far as we know, everything is good now, and the radiation has worked well. I mean, there's going to be some side effects and things like that that I am going to have to live probably forever with, but I'm living. So,
We had I'd say similar reaction, I guess is more the fun way to say it, is with my husband's condition. We went somewhere that was supposed to be the best of the best as well. And I remember having a phone call with them that actually it was like the week my husband had lost his ability to talk fully. So about 3 years ago, his speech was going in and out after a series of seizures, and then a couple months after that, he had some issues, and then he just woke up one day and it was gone. So I remember, not to get into like the weeds, there's a lot of other complications that happen with that, but basically we have our neuro-oncologist here who is absolutely and utterly amazing. He's an amazing doctor and an amazing human being. Like, it's hard to find that combo sometimes. And we still had someone else that was kind of following Andrew's case. And I remember when we went there, after the phone call that told us I would be lucky if he lived 3 months later. That phone call took place in June. In October of that same year, I brought Andrew physically in there. And I feel like they didn't even acknowledge him as a human being. That
mm-hmm.
they basically had the whole conversation with me and was like, "You're wasting your time. You shouldn't see, there's nothing more the medical can do for you, you know?" And I asked him, I said, "If this was your wife, would you make the same decision?"
Yeah,
And the doctor said, "Yes, you really should just focus on spending time with loved ones." That'll be 3 years ago this June.
yeah,
And it's just, I tell people all the time, like, yeah, he's a medical miracle. We don't understand it, but you know what? It's between him and God.
yeah,
And I love when people are able to share their stories of faith, because sometimes we don't have it when we go into it, or we
mhm,
lose it during the process. And just reminding people, like, turn to your faith.
yeah,
You know, it's really empowering. And if it, for me, if it makes my soul rest easy at night, the decisions I've made for the day, then I'm doing a good job. Then
yeah.
I'm good. And if not, then I just need to fix it tomorrow. So I love how powerful of a story that is for you as well. You're like, "Hey, I was told this, and I'm not going to believe that. I'm going to go with this other thing, and I'm going to pray about it, and I'm going to move forward because I have people relying on me, and I want to continue to live this crazy thing we call life." Your story, I'm sure there's so much more depth to it and so much more we could cover too, more than you probably even realize yourself, how amazing of a story that you have. And I'm so grateful for your time today. I want to be able to give you a chance as we kind of wrap this up. Is there something that we didn't cover that you want to make sure that our listeners hear, or do you have some final thoughts that you want to make sure people are left with?
One of the biggest things that I've told a couple of my friends is the choices you make are something that you're going to have to live with. If a professional, whether it's a healthcare professional, an attorney, or whoever, if they tell you to make a certain choice because of things that they have seen, not every case is going to be black and white, and you have to live with your choice. No matter your outcome, their lives are still going to go on. and they don't have to deal with any consequences, to the choices that you've made. Only you and your loved ones do. So, the biggest thing I want to tell people is don't let professionals tell you how things are going to go just because of something they've seen. Make choices that you know that you can live your life with, and that you can go to sleep at night knowing that you made that choice as best as possible.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's amazing. Oh, thank you so much. I feel like I've learned and grown so much through our conversation, which I always love getting to hear people's stories and just being able to pull out that hope and share that with everyone else. So thank you again. I know you didn't feel like your story was worth telling, but holy smokes, I really think it is, and I can't wait to hear how many other lives are going to be able to be touched by listening to our chat.
Thank you. I hope it inspires other to, you know, do what they feel is right for them and their family, and to just, I don't know, to love others. Like, that's what carried us through, is faith and love and hope. I know there's like that little silly thing of like faith, hope, and love, but really it's what carried my family. So I really hope that people share love and support each other, and it was great.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.